Hi, welcome to Healing Humanity. My name is Dina. I want to talk to you today about some marginalization that is on the table. What do I mean? So, what I mean is that over the course of the last, say, 84 years, and that's just the information that I have here in front of me, a lot has transpired between men and women legally, right? Or for or about women legally. And I don't think that a lot of folks that are out here trying to make decisions right now about where we go, how we proceed, I don't think that you guys are being told everything. And I don't know that you are aware of the things that have happened, the things that I even remember in my lifetime regarding women. Why am I bringing this up? Because, like I said, I think that there's some new folks at the table that um, have the ability to make some decisions. And up until this point, the decisions have been managed improperly. There's been people that have tried to um, silence women recently. Now, this is in the last 10 years. So there's been um, a desire to silence women, a desire to go back to the 1950s where women stay at home and men, so they can raise the children, and men go out and work. Um, and it seems as if that is the driving narrative, and that men were supposed to pick their wives, and that all others were then considered sinners or not worthy enough of perhaps even life in general. See, we're in a time of judgment right now, and whether you realize it or not, this judgment is harsh and it is not easy, and and it comes with a lot of confusion, a lot of confusion by the decision makers, and a lot of confusion by the people that are trying to walk a righteous path. But here's the problem: when we start pitting one gender against another, it's much like if we're pitting one one nationality against another. Chaos ensues. Chaos begins. You know, when we are looking at changing the world and becoming a better earth, you cannot do that and separate anyone. You have to be inclusive of all. You have to be inclusive and understanding and giving to all, not just one group or a small portion of one group. You know, since in the last 84 years, I kind of want to go through just a few changes that have happened in just regarding women's lives. 116 years ago, which really isn't that long if you think about it. That's half of the time that America has been around, basically. It became legal in America for women to wear pants. Because prior to this, if they wore pants, they were ticketed, arrested, or fined. That was in 1910. In 1920, white man gave white women the right to vote. But that came with a whole lot of suffering. Hence why the women that were fighting for these rights to vote were called the suffragettes. They were tortured and jailed and fined and harmed in unspeakable ways, even in jail. Um, this was 106 years ago. But they finally, in 1920, were given the right to vote. 1963, which is only 63 years ago, because not a whole lot happened between, let's see, 1963 and 1920. Not much changed for women. Not much intervention or advancement between 1920 and 1963. A lot did not happen during that period of time that changed the way that the world acted toward America acted towards women. But in 1963, there was a landmark case where women earned the right for equal pay. However, even till today, 63 years later, we're still really fighting for that equal right. Because honestly, women still earn about 60 cents on the dollar based on the same amount of work and, and whatever progress they're making in the position. I would just ask you, what if your earnings were capped because of your genitals? How would you feel about that? So when you're starting to make these decisions, I want you to keep these things in mind, because this was something that happened, like I said, 63 years ago, just before, I was born. 1965, black women could finally vote. Finally. That was only 61 years ago. There are people here listening today that were around at the time that this was being done. In 1969, women could initiate divorce proceedings. Prior to this, not that divorce didn't happen, because it certainly did, but in 1969, women could then initiate divorce. If they separated from their husbands prior to 1969, they could not initiate a divorce. They had to stay married. She could not file for herself. She was stuck. Now, she didn't have to stay with him, but she was stuck in a marriage, which also meant that she had to get his permission for a bank account. She had to get his permission for a loan, if that was even possible. I don't even think that was possible, but if it was possible, had to go through her husband or her father or brother or someone else. She would have had to get permission for birth control. She would have had to get permission for just about anything she wanted to do. If she wanted to go to school, she'd have to get permission from her husband, even though she was not with him. Going backwards is not always necessarily a good thing. These things came hard, and they came with a large fight, and they came with lingering problems still to today. So when men talk about wanting to go backwards to a simpler way of life, we can do that, but it comes at a massive price. 1972, which is just 54 years ago, women could not buy birth control until this year without a man's permission and his assistance. A doctor would absolutely not prescribe birth control to women without their husband or a man's permission. Now, a man could have been their brother, it could have been a father, it could have been a husband, or, God forbid, she, decided to strike a deal with some stranger to go and, stand up for her. So she was at the mercy. Women were at the mercy of a man's power over her. 1974, just 52 years ago, and many of you were around for this. A woman could finally purchase a home without a man, whether she was single or married. She always had to have the man on the mortgage. Not that he had to sign as a co-signer or anything like that. He had to physically be on the mortgage as the backer of this mortgage. Whether he was the one paying for it or not, he had to be there. Just 38 years ago, in 1988, women got the right to own their own business without a man. They could not own a business prior to, not alone, prior to this. They needed permission, and not just permission verbally, they needed written permission. In 1994, just 32 years ago, women finally earned the right to defend themselves in court against domestic abuse. There was no legal recourse against domestic violence or spousal rape until 1994, which was, again, 32 years ago. If they were married, or if they were in a living relationship, like living in the same household, it was considered fine. It was not considered rape. And that caused a lot of problems for a lot of women and a lot of pain. And that was a landmark change. All of these were landmark changes. You know, women have honestly suffered a catastrophic marginalization over the ages. They still are in other countries, tremendously in other countries. I mean, honestly, it's no different right now than, you know, us wearing burqas as they are in Afghanistan. I mean, what a horrible way to live your life, to look through little tiny holes to see the world around you. I don't know how they breathe. I don't know how they function properly. And now it's becoming even worse. They're not being allowed out of their homes. They're not allowed to speak in public. They're not allowed, certainly not allowed to sing in public. So many various other different things that they are not allowed to do. This kind of control, and the control that I'm talking about here, needs to be kept in mind when you are thinking that you are going to change the way that the narrative is for relationships and for women right now. This is just over a course of 84 years, and I don't know what's coming or how we are going to get through it, but it needs to be a collaboration between men and women, not this hierarchical, controlled structure that man has built behind the scenes. It is not a stable system, and it is not healthy. You know, you think that, I know that I see a lot of men struggling to figure out, like, how to approach the future when it comes to relationships, when it comes to women, when it comes to certain allowances, if you will. But I think we need to really get to the bottom of being human and collaborating again together, rather than pitting one against another. Instead of trying to tell women that they cannot function as a productive member of society and have a family as well, because that's a lie. There's thousands of women that have done it. I myself have done it. Does it always go successfully? No, it doesn't. But that's life, right? I mean, I would much rather make the mistakes and have my attention brought to my business, and then, okay, I need to move it from my business to my family, and maybe from my family to one child within the family, than to be told I didn't have those options. That is not the way that we should build the new earth. That is not the way that we should build the structure going forward. Women need the ability to work. They need the ability to make their own money. They need the ability to fend for themselves, not a forced fending for themselves. What I've also noticed is that some men believe in their wives so much, but they think that it's okay to take their children from them and force them out of the home. That doesn't do any good either. Women need their children. They need their family. They need that love and affection and camaraderie, amongst partners, to be able to build something beautiful. They don't need to be pushed aside, held in silence, or been told what to do or not to do. It's really time for us to really come together and truly collaborate, rather than, again, pitting one gender against another. It's sickening, and it just should not be at this stage. We've come a long way, and I, for one, don't want to go backwards, and I certainly don't want to see ourselves worse in 10 years from now than what we are right now. Because, I know the way that my mom was raised, the certain way that she was raised, she did not even want to approach my father for assistance for college. I had to wait to go to college until I was 26 years old in order that I could apply for the lending and the federal funds to be able to attend college and not need my parents to sign off for me. That was the most frustrating thing I have ever been through in my life. But my mother wouldn't approach my father on this. She would not go to him and ask him for his signature, even though I was going to pay the loan. She would not approach him for the signature. Women should not have to be just squashed at this point in the world. It's time to do the right thing, and time to collaborate, time to work together, time to just build together rather than what's happened. This structure of control is just slavery in hiding. That's all it is, and you know it. What's been built in the religious community, what's been built in the political arena, what has been built in family structures in some cases, is all so controlling and demeaning and just marginalizes women completely. Now, there's a lot of women that have overcome this. They have great men in their life that have not held them back, have not kept them in secret, have not decided that they are the end-all be-all and they keep their women at home, and they have not kicked their women out and taken their children from them. We could do things a lot better, and I hope that you agree. I think that it's important for us to make sure that women have an opportunity, not forced chaos, not an opportunity through forced chaos, but an opportunity for true self-sufficiency. And through that self-sufficiency, they then can choose a much better path for their lives, for not only their lives, but having children in the future, and which partner that they're going to be with. They're no longer going to need a man to be able to support them. You, as a woman, would no longer need a man to support you. If you are able to do it on your own without any worry or any concern, not a concern about the wages that you're going to make, not a concern about the health insurance that you're going to be able to provide for your family, not a concern about whether you're going to be able to go to college or not go to college, whether you can buy a home or you can't buy a home, whether you're going to be stuck in the house or you're not going to be stuck in the house. It's all going to be your choice. And it's going to be, it will free up the man to be able to build his life and his wealth on his own, and not have to worry about taking care of another person, not worry about providing for his family solely. That he will have an equal partner in being able to, or if not completely equal, at least semi-equal, to be able to build for their family together. That they won't look at a woman as someone who's just money hungry and only looking to take from you. I see this all over, especially when I was down in Texas. There was a lot of that, and it was sad because a lot of these women just wanted the freedom to be themselves, and that wasn't allowed. But it wasn't allowed because of this controlled system that has been built around these relationships. Anyway, until next time, keep nurturing yourself, strengthening your body, mind, and soul. And I hope that you're able to think about what I said, because I know that there's a lot of things on the table right now. And I know a lot has been talked about, a lot has been tried to be planned, and I hope that this is a little bit of an eye-opener for you, that there's no reason to go backwards and there's no reason to go sideways. We can move forward, and we can do so by collaborating together.